The moment Sabrina spoke, I couldn't get the ring into Caleb's hand fast enough. "She's all yours now," I said. "I wish you two a lifetime of happiness." No one saw that coming. A stunned silence fell over the room before it was broken by a wave of snickering. "Sean, you really are Sabrina's #1 lapdog, aren't you? She says get married. You run up to the altar. She says never mind. You hand over your spot without a second thought. Even a trained dog isn't that obedient these days." As I went from a groom on the pedestal to the butt of every joke, Caleb was practically glowing with triumph. But he put on a show of sympathy. "Hey, don't talk about Sean like that," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "He's taken care of Bree for years. He's put in the work. It's just a special situation right now." Then he turned to me, his expression earnest. "Sean, don't get the wrong idea. I only stopped you from marrying Bree to save my own life. I swear I had no intention of getting between you two." He gestured vaguely. "Besides, Bree is her own person with her own feelings. She has the right to choose. She's not some prize to be passed around, right?" It was a masterclass in sanctimonious bullshit, and it worked perfectly. Sabrina's irritation with me instantly sharpened. She frowned. "That's enough, Sean. I know you're head over heels in love with me, but don't think this act is going to change my mind. I offered you the title of husband, and that should have been enough for you. Don't push it." For years, I had been at Sabrina's beck and call. I'd driven halfway across New York at 3 a.m. just to get her the specific soup dumpling she was craving. She'd mentioned offhand that she liked a new handbag, and I was on the next flight to Paris to get it for her before it sold out. Every time she got sick, I stayed by her side, a sleepless sentinel, until she was back on her feet. Everyone thought I was hopelessly, tragically in love with Sabrina Vance. What they didn't know was that my only goal was to get my wife and daughter back. 5 years ago, a plane crash had thrown me into this world. A system, for lack of a better word, had promised me that if I could successfully win Sabrina's heart, complete her route, I could return to my own world. My wife and daughter would be brought back to life. But with my heart still belonging to my wife, I had no interest in wooing another woman. The system offered a compromise. If I could just hold on until the next player arrived, my wish would still be granted. So I protected my investment. I hovered over Sabrina, making sure nothing happened to her. Even this wedding was a sham, a performance she'd asked me to participate in to appease her family. In return, she'd promised me legal status, a green card marriage that would allow me to stay by her side. But then, 3 months before the wedding, Caleb showed up, and Sabrina, who had always been a creature of ice and calculation, began to thaw. She'd never cooked a day in her life, but for Caleb's birthday, she baked him a cake from scratch. He casually mentioned he'd never seen a real fireworks show, and she pulled strings to have the entire city skyline light up just for him. She'd even bailed on a $10 million contract negotiation just to attend his college graduation. She was showing him her love in the only way she knew how, with money and grand, sweeping gestures. At first, I was worried. If Caleb replaced me as the man by her side, would the system still honor its deal? I shouldn't have been. It turned out Caleb was the very player I'd been waiting for. I could barely contain my joy. I was about to say something, anything, to smooth things over, when Caleb walked toward me. "Sean," he said kindly, "I know you're upset right now, but this ring, Bree gave it to you. I can't take it. It wouldn't be right." He held it out, but just as my fingers were about to close around it, he let go. The simple platinum band clattered onto the stage, rolled to the edge, and disappeared into the shadows below. I looked at Caleb. He gave me a tiny, knowing smile. A second later, he staggered, his body lurching sideways as if he'd been shoved. He tumbled off the low stage, landing in a heap on the floor. Sabrina's eyes went wide. "Caleb!" She rushed to his side, her usual icy composure completely shattered. Caleb was already sobbing, looking up at me with wide, pleading eyes. "Sean, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to drop the ring. I'll pay you back for it." He turned his tear-streaked face to Sabrina. "Bree, don't be mad at Sean. It was my fault. I just lost my balance. It had nothing to do with him." His defense was the most damning accusation of all. Sabrina's head snapped up, her eyes blazing with fury. "Sean, I told you that you'd still be my husband even without this wedding. Why do you have to be so aggressive? Do you want to see him dead before you're satisfied?" Her voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "If you're going to keep pushing, then just get out of my sight. For good." The guests, catching on, started murmuring about how heartless I was. Caleb's face was a mask of angelic suffering. "Bree, please don't. If I hadn't dropped the ring, Sean wouldn't have. Don't blame him." Sabrina's heart melted. "Stop it. Don't blame yourself. The wedding's off. The ring doesn't matter." She stroked his hair. "But if you like it, I'll have someone buy a new pair for you this afternoon. How does that sound?" Caleb looked up, his voice small and hopeful. Really? Would you wear one with me? When she nodded, his face lit up with pure joy. I watched as he shot me a look of smug victory from over Sabrina's shoulder. My own excitement began to cool, replaced by a familiar wariness. This wasn't the first time Caleb had faked an injury, played the innocent victim, and expertly turned me into the villain of the story. Afterward, he'd always find me, gloating about how Sabrina doted on him, how she always chose him. I once asked him why. He just smirked and said he wanted to see who was more important to her. It was a game to him, and he never lost. Just because he'd revealed himself as the next player didn't mean I could forget his true nature. But it didn't matter. Soon, none of this would be my problem. I walked past the whispering crowd and handed a document to Sabrina. Don't worry, I said, my voice perfectly steady. From now on, I won't ever appear in front of you again. She blinked, confused. Then her eyes fell on the paper, and a flicker of panic crossed her face. It was our prenuptial agreement, the only real document binding us. It was filled with outrageously one-sided clauses, almost all of them designed to exploit me. When she'd first presented it, I'd signed it without even reading it. That act had cemented her belief that I would do absolutely anything to be with her. Now I was handing it back, and for the first time, I saw a genuine alarm in Sabrina Vance's eyes. Before she could process it, I turned and walked toward the exit. A moment later, a familiar, synthesized voice sounded in my head. Congratulations, host. The system has detected a new player in this world. You will be returned to your original world in 3 days. The weight I've been carrying for 5 years lifted. The thought of seeing my wife and daughter again sent a jolt of pure, uncontrollable joy through me. Back at the apartment, I started packing. I didn't have much, and even less that was connected to Sabrina. 2 suitcases were more than enough. Just as I was about to sit down, my phone rang. It was Sabrina. I answered, puzzled, but it was her best friend, Lauren, on the line. Her voice was frantic. Sean, you have to get to Metropolitan General now. Sabrina was chasing after you. She ran into the street. She was hit by a car. She's in the ER. The old me would have been there in a heartbeat. But now my first thought was, doesn't she have Caleb? Lauren was momentarily speechless. Are you coming or not? She shrieked. It was ridiculous. I was about to hang up when I remembered there was one last thing of mine she still had. Fine, I said. I'll be there in a bit. When I arrived, the private room was packed. As I walked in, Sabrina, the center of attention, visibly relaxed before schooling her features back into a mask of indifference. Lauren smirked. See, Bree? I told you he'd come. The others chimed in. A lapdog always knows its master. Exactly. After chasing her for 5 years, you think he'd give up, right, when he's about to get what he wants? Bree really knows how to keep him on a leash. These were Sabrina's yes men, the same people who'd been mocking me for years. I didn't care then, and I certainly didn't care now. Sabrina, clearly pleased with my appearance, spoke with regal condescension. Since you've behaved, I'll give you a chance to make up for your earlier performance. She gestured to Caleb, who was lying on a hospital bed, his foot propped up on a pillow. You're the one who pushed him off the stage, so you'll be the one to take care of him. Her voice was firm. When he's discharged, I'll consider forgiving you. Caleb coughed weakly. Bree, it's just a sprained ankle. It's not that serious. Of course it's serious. Sabrina cut him off. You're so young. What if there's permanent damage? You'll do as I say. Caleb immediately became the model of obedience. When no one was looking, he shot me a triumphant, challenging glare. So that was it. They lured me here to be Caleb's personal nurse. I was done playing their games. I walked straight up to Sabrina and held out my hand. Get it back. Her smile froze. What did you say? I pointed to the worn leather cord around her neck. That necklace. Since we're never seeing each other again, I want it back. The room went silent. Everyone exchanged confused glances, completely blindsided. Caleb, however, found his voice first, his face a canvas of disapproval. Sean, you're a grown man. Asking for a gift back? Have you no shame? I couldn't help but laugh. When it comes to shame, Caleb, I'm an amateur compared to you. You were lucky this time. Just a sprained ankle. Be careful you don't crack your head open next time. You'd only have yourself to blame. Caleb's eyes welled up with tears. I can't stand to see you treat a woman like this. Sabrina gave you 5 years of her life, her best years. He sniffled. It's one thing to be heartless, but to curse me like that. The others, snapping out of their shock, joined the chorus, calling me less than a man. They seemed to have forgotten that for those 5 years, I was the one trailing after Sabrina, catering to her every whim. When she was happy, she might throw me a crumb of attention. When she was upset, I was her punching bag. What best years had she given me? Besides, that necklace was a good luck charm my wife had given me. blessed at a temple before a big trip. I'd never taken it off, until Sabrina saw it and had to have it. I refused at first, but she'd threatened to cut me out of her life completely. Defeated, I told myself I was just letting her hold on to it for a while. Now that I was leaving, I was taking it with me. I stood my ground, my hand still outstretched. This was the first time in all the years she'd known me that I had been so unyielding. Her expression hardened. Is that the only reason you came to the hospital? For this cheap thing? What else? I shot back. Sabrina's jaw tightened. Fine, she seethed, and then repeated it twice more. Fine, fine. She mirrored my gesture, holding out her own hand. You want your things back? Then you can return every single thing I've ever given you. She said it with such righteous indignation that I burst out laughing. Sabrina, I asked, an actual, genuine smile on my face. Why don't you take a moment and think? In all these years, what have you ever given me? She started to answer, her mouth opening with confidence. Of course I've given you. She trailed off, her brow furrowed. She searched her memory, but came up empty. In 5 years, she had given me exactly one gift, the platinum wedding band that Caleb had just accidentally dropped off the stage. The realization hit her, and her face turned an ugly shade of red. Humiliated and furious, she ripped the leather cord from her neck. I reached for it, but instead of handing it over, Sabrina pulled a Zippo lighter from her pocket. She looked me dead in the eye, her voice a low snarl. Sean, if I can't have something, I'll destroy it before I let anyone else have it. The flame leaped to life, instantly engulfing the leather cord. My eyes widened in horror. I lunged forward, slapping at the fire with my bare hands, trying to smother it. Sabrina jumped back, startled, then moved to stop me. Her friends quickly pulled her away. Bree, don't get too close. Caleb warned from the bed. You could get burned. Realizing he was right, Sabrina stood back and watched, her voice cold as ice. Consider this a warning, Sean. Just apologize, and we can forget this ever happened. I ignored her, frantically trying to salvage what was left. But the flame was too fast. In seconds, all that remained on the tiled floor was a small pile of gray ash. For 5 years, no matter what she did to me, I'd endured it. I told myself none of it mattered. As long as I held out until the next player arrived, I would be free. I would see my wife and daughter again. Nothing in this world mattered but that. But that necklace. It was the only thing I had left of them. It was the anchor that had kept me sane for 5 long years. And she had burned it without a second thought. For the first time, a pure, undiluted hatred for Sabrina Vance bloomed in my chest. I found a piece of paper and carefully scraped the ashes into it, folding it into a neat packet. My eyes were burning. I looked up and met her gaze, my voice shaking with rage. I will never apologize to you, Sabrina. For the rest of my life, I never want to see you again. With that, I turned and walked out of the room without a backward glance. Behind me, Sabrina stood frozen, her face flushed with anger, but a strange, unfamiliar panic fluttered in her chest. Her first instinct was to run after me, to argue, to have the last word. But a pained cry from the hospital bed stopped her. She turned to see Caleb struggling to get up, tumbling to the floor in a heap. He looked up at her, his eyes brimming with tears. Sean's really got some nerve, someone said, trying to curry favor. Talking to you like that, Brie. Someone ought to teach him a lesson next time. Put him back in his place. For some reason, the comments grated on Sabrina's nerves. Shut up, she snapped. The room fell silent, everyone staring at her, confused by her sudden outburst. Finally, Lauren stepped forward. Bree, don't be mad. If you ask me, Sean's just trying a new tactic. He's playing hard to get, trying to get your attention. That's all. Sabrina didn't say anything, but the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. She waved a dismissive hand. Fine. Caleb is a patient. He needs to rest. All of you get out. The crowd breathed a collective sigh of relief and began to file out. Only Caleb remained, his head bowed, his expression unreadable. After leaving the hospital, I went to a small shop and bought a tiny vial. I carefully poured the ashes inside and put it in my pocket, close to my heart. I worried about how I would explain this to my wife, but the thought of her made me smile. She was so gentle, so understanding. She wouldn't blame me. She just asked if I was okay. With everything settled, I grabbed my luggage and checked into a hotel. For the next 2 days, there was silence from Sabrina. I assumed we wouldn't have any contact before I left. On the 3rd day, my phone buzzed. It was a new post on Caleb's Instagram story. He tagged me. In the photo, Caleb and Sabrina were cuddled close, smiling for the camera. On their ring fingers, they wore a matching pair of diamond-studded rings, far more extravagant than the simple band I'd almost worn. The caption read, "Thank God I came to this world and found you." My amazing Bree. The comments were a flood of heart emojis and people saying how perfect they were together. The old me might have felt a pang of anxiety, worried that Caleb had truly taken my place. But now all I felt was relief. I hope they'd be attached at the hip forever. I silently liked the post and commented, "Congrats." I was about to block them both when my phone started ringing. It was Sabrina. The second I answered, words tumbled out of her mouth in a rush. "That photo. Caleb was just messing around. He insisted we take it. It doesn't mean anything, so don't worry about it." Sabrina Vance never explained herself to anyone, least of all to me. Her sudden defensiveness caught me off guard. She seemed to realize it too, clearing her throat. "Caleb was discharged today. We're going out for drinks to celebrate. Do you want to come?" My mind was already thousands of miles away, with my wife and daughter. I didn't register the note of hope in her voice. "No," I said, without a second's hesitation. Her tone instantly turned cold. "Fine. Then you can stay home and make us some soup for our hangovers." It was our old routine. Whenever she went out drinking, I'd have a pot of hangover remedy soup waiting for her when she got home. She had come to expect it, but she didn't know that I would never do anything for her again. The familiar synthesized voice echoed in my mind. "Mission complete. Your wife and daughter have been revived. Commencing transfer back to your original world." On the other end of the line, Sabrina was still talking, calling my name over and over. But in the hotel room, my eyes had already closed for the last time. Sabrina stared at her phone, the dial tone buzzing in her ear. Just before the call dropped, she'd heard a crackle of static, a weird electronic screech. Before she could ask what it was, the line went dead. A terrible premonition washed over her. Lauren noticed her expression. "Bree? What's wrong?" Sabrina briefly explained what had happened. Lauren laughed it off. "Relax, Bree. What's going to happen to a grown man like Sean? He's probably still sulking about the other day and hung up on you to be dramatic." The others nodded in agreement. "Yeah, I've never seen anyone with a thicker skin than Sean. He put up with it for 5 years. It's normal for him to finally snap a little. Honestly, if he didn't, I'd think he had some kind of masochistic streak." Meanwhile, I was floating in midair, looking down at the familiar hotel room in confusion. I was supposed to be going home, not turning into a ghost. The system's voice chimed in, full of apology. "Host, an error occurred while opening the dimensional gateway. Your active phone call interfered with the surrounding magnetic field, forcing an emergency suspension of the transfer process. Rest assured, we are running diagnostics and will complete the transfer as soon as possible." I couldn't believe it. A single phone call had derailed my journey home. I sighed, resigned to my fate. There was nothing to do but wait. In the bar, Caleb was also comforting Sabrina. "Bree, I'm a player. I can sense the well-being of anyone connected to you. I'm not sensing any danger for Sean. He's fine." Hearing this, Sabrina finally relaxed. In her mind, Caleb was a beacon of pure innocence. He would never lie to her. She believed him without question. Someone in their group piped up, curious. "Caleb, you keep saying you're a player. What does that even mean?" Caleb smiled. "A player is usually sent here for a specific person or a specific task. Their existence is tied to that objective. For me, Bree is my objective. My entire purpose is to make her happy." A chorus of oohs and ahs went around the table. "So, does that mean you two were destined to meet?" Someone teased. "That's so romantic." A blush crept up Caleb's neck. He ducked his head, stealing a glance at Sabrina. But her mind was elsewhere. Caleb's words had jogged a memory. She vaguely recalled passing my bedroom late one night and hearing me muttering to myself about a player and a system. It was a long time ago, and the details were fuzzy. She thought for a moment, then asked, "Caleb, you said that if I married Sean, you would fail your mission and disappear. So what does it mean to succeed? Is there a reward?" His blush deepened. If we get married, that would be success," he said, looking embarrassed. "Then, not only would you have a lifetime of happiness, but I could stay here forever by your side." Sabrina froze. She hadn't expected the requirement for his success to be marriage. Perhaps it was the alcohol or the mood in the room. Caleb seemed to make a decision. He suddenly dropped to one knee. "Bree, I know this is sudden, but I'm so in love with you. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life taking care of you, and only you. Will you marry me?" His voice was thick with emotion, and the others started swooning. Lauren led the chant. "Marry him! Marry him!" Caleb looked at Sabrina, his eyes shining with hope. But Sabrina looked like a deer in the headlights. She shot to her feet, her gaze darting around the room. "That's enough for tonight. I'm tired. I'm going home." The cheering died. Everyone stared. Even I was surprised. Ever since Caleb had appeared, Sabrina had wanted to be with him 24/7. It was only her perfunctory commitment to me that had held her back. Now that I was out of the picture, she should have jumped at his proposal. Sabrina herself didn't understand her reaction. Caleb was different from me. He was vulnerable. He needed her help. She loved his innocence, loved the feeling of being with him, loved how he depended on her completely when he felt wronged. It was a kind of validation she had never gotten from me. But for some reason, ever since our fight at the hospital, her mind had been a tangled mess. The feeling was as sudden as it was inexplicable. Now, faced with Caleb's proposal, she felt completely unprepared. Her first instinct was to run. Sensing the confusion in the room, Sabrina offered a plausible excuse. "I'm just exhausted from the past few days. Let's talk about this later." It was true. She had practically lived at the hospital while taking care of Caleb, running on fumes. She was at her breaking point. For the first time, she had a flicker of understanding for what I must have gone through every time she'd been sick. But her rejection wasn't just about being tired. It was Caleb's words. They had reignited the unease she'd been trying to suppress. She had a gut feeling that if she said yes, something would spiral out of her control. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Lauren quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "Oh, silly me, of course Bree's exhausted. She's been through so much." She patted Caleb's shoulder. "Marriage is a huge deal. You can't just decide on a whim. Caleb, why don't you plan a proper, romantic proposal for when Bree is feeling rested and beautiful? For now, you should take her home." The others chimed in with their agreement, no one daring to mention my name. Usually, Caleb would be the one to take Sabrina home, and she never said no. It had become their routine. Seeing a way out, Caleb let go of the rejected proposal. He hadn't really expected a yes tonight anyway. He stepped forwards to take Sabrina's purse. But this time, Sabrina shook her head. "That's okay." Caleb's outstretched hand froze midair. He could handle the rejection of his proposal, but this second, public refusal was a slap in the face. In an instant, his expression soured. I had to hand it to him, I thought dryly. When I was trailing after Sabrina, I'd endured far worse humiliation than this. He had it easy. No one knew what to make of Sabrina's behavior. The silence was deafening. Caleb took a few deep breaths, lowered his head, and when he looked up again, his eyes were glistening with tears. "Bree," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Is it because of Sean? Are you worried he'll see us and get the wrong idea? I promise. I just want to make sure you get home safely. I'll leave the second you're inside. I won't get in the way of you and Sean." It was his signature move. Any other time, Sabrina would have melted. But tonight, she didn't budge. She just patted his arm gently. "Don't overthink it, Caleb. This party was for you. You should stay and have fun with everyone. I'll be fine on my own. I'll see you tomorrow." Without waiting for a reply, she turned and walked out, her pace so brisk it was almost frantic. I glanced back at Caleb. The pitiful, heartbroken expression was gone, replaced by a dark, simmering anger. Sabrina called an Uber. As they neared her building, she took out her compact and touched up her makeup. The driver chuckled. "Getting all dolled up, huh? Meeting the boyfriend." I expected her to deny it. Instead, she smiled. "Not my boyfriend," she corrected. "My husband." She paused, then added, "I was away on a business trip for a few days. I wanted to surprise him." The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror, impressed. "Wow, you two must have a great thing going. Already married, and still putting in the effort to surprise each other. You don't see that much anymore." Sabrina didn't respond, but the slight curve of her lips showed she was pleased. When they arrived, she pulled 2 crisp $100 bills from her wallet and told the driver to keep the change. The driver thanked her profusely, showering her with wishes of a long and happy life together. The blessings put a spring in her step. I just watched, bemused. When I was completely devoted to her, she ignored me for Caleb. Now that I wanted nothing to do with her, she was ditching Caleb to chase after me. What was her game? At her apartment door, Sabrina slowed her pace. She took a deep breath, cleared her throat, and composed her expression into one of regal nonchalance. Then, she pushed the door open. "I'm home." In her mind, I would be on the couch, waiting for her with a pot of soup. Maybe I'd look up, shocked to see her. Then, she would offer me some small token of forgiveness, and all the unpleasantness of the past few days would be forgotten. I would go back to being her obedient, devoted Sean. But as the door swung open, her practiced smile froze. The apartment was empty and silent. There was no trace of me. Not only that, but the photos of me on the walls were gone. The nerdy little collectibles I'd brought home, the ones she always called childish, had vanished. Sabrina's heart skipped a beat. She ran to my room and threw open the closet doors. They were empty. She finally understood. A surge of fury washed over her. "So that's your game, Sean," she hissed to the empty room. "Running away from home. Just you wait until I find you. You're going to be sorry." Her idea of punishment was usually some form of public humiliation, forcing me to write a 10,000-word apology and read it aloud on my knees. It was her favorite way of breaking someone's spirit. But she didn't know that I'd only ever complied because I didn't care. And now, she had no power over me at all. Floating in the air, I watched her dial my number again and again. I saw the expression on her face shift from anger to confusion and finally to a deep, gnawing worry. It was fascinating. I'd never seen her look like that before. Those expressions had always been reserved for Caleb. Just as she was about to give up, the call finally connected. Sabrina's eyes lit up. "Sean, where are you?" she blurted out. A woman's voice answered. "Hello." Sabrina froze, her voice turning sharp. "Who is this? Where's Sean? Why do you have his phone?" "Ma'am, my name is Maria. I'm a manager at the Royce Hotel," the woman explained calmly. "The owner of this phone checked in 3 days ago. We noticed the phone had been ringing nonstop, but no one was answering. The housekeeper was concerned something might be wrong, so she notified us, and we entered the room." Sabrina let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Okay, well, where is he? Put him on the phone." This time, the woman on the other end was silent for a long moment. Finally, instead of answering, she just asked if Sabrina could come to the hotel as soon as possible. A cold, unfamiliar dread gripped Sabrina's heart. After getting the address, she rushed out the door. She was surprised to find Caleb waiting for her in the hallway. He started stammering an explanation. "Bree, I wasn't following you, I swear. I was just worried about you." Sabrina didn't have time for it. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the elevator. Because I couldn't stray too far from her, I was forced to tag along. When they got to the hotel, the manager was waiting. She led them down the hall to my room. "Mr. Miller checked in 3 days ago," she explained, her voice low. "He never once left his room by the time we found him. I'm so sorry." On the king-size bed, I lay peacefully, a faint smile on my lips, my eyes forever closed. The vague unease that had been plaguing Sabrina finally crashed down on her. She stared at my body, unable to process what she was seeing. It felt like a nightmare. Caleb stood beside her, stunned. But after a moment, I saw a flicker of pure, unadulterated joy in his eyes before he quickly masked it with a look of sorrow. He put a comforting arm around Sabrina. "Bree, don't be so sad. Sean, he probably just couldn't handle it anymore." Sabrina's head whipped around. "What did you say?" Caleb pointed to the nightstand. An empty bottle of pills lay on its side, its contents spilled across the carpet. To any observer, the conclusion was obvious. I had taken my own life. Sabrina opened her mouth to say something, but a wave of grief, so powerful it felt physical, washed over her. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she collapsed. When she woke up, the police were there. The scene had been processed. The coroner's report concluded that I had died of a heart attack induced by a massive overdose. No matter how much she wanted to deny it, Sabrina had to accept the truth. The man who had followed her around like a shadow was gone forever. In the weeks that followed, Sabrina was like a ghost. She'd be in the middle of a meeting or out with friends and would suddenly call my name, asking me to grab her a file or pour her a glass of water. It was only when a friend gently reminded her that she would remember. I was dead. Perhaps you only realize what's important after you've lost it. Memories of my years with her, of my devotion and endless patience, began to flood her mind. Every small gesture, a warm glass of water, a quiet word of comfort, and every grand one, the times I put myself in danger to protect her, was magnified until it became an all-encompassing net, trapping her inside. She realized, far too late, that somewhere along the way, she had fallen in love with me. And with that realization came a tidal wave of regret and remorse. She started drinking heavily, drowning herself in alcohol, deaf to the world around her. I never would have guessed my death would hit her so hard. But in my ghostly opinion, it wasn't love. It was the howl of a possessive creature that had lost its most prized possession. During this time, Caleb was constantly at her side, trying to slip into the vacancy I had left. But Sabrina was a hollow shell, completely unresponsive. Then one day, as if guided by some unseen force, she picked up my phone. She opened my text messages and her eyes went wide. I floated over her shoulder and saw what she was looking at. It was my message history with Caleb. It was a long, one-sided stream of him bragging about the luxury clothes, watches, and cars Sabrina had bought him. Mixed in were his gloating messages after every time he'd successfully framed me for something. The only time I had ever replied was after he'd crashed Sabrina's favorite sports car and blamed it on me. I had simply texted. Why? Caleb, apparently feeling that text couldn't convey his glee, had sent a voice message in reply. "Because I love watching Sabrina punish you for me," his voice chirped. "You have no idea how good it feels to see you suffer. Serve you right for trying to compete with me for her. Loser." After that, I'd never open our chat again. I'd certainly never— Why? Caleb, apparently feeling that text couldn't convey his glee, had sent a voice message in reply. Because I love watching Sabrina punish you for me, his voice chirped. You have no idea how good it feels to see you suffer. Serve you right for trying to compete with me for her. Loser. After that, I'd never open our chat again. I'd certainly never thought to delete it. Sabrina, who had always seen Caleb as a pure, harmless boy, was horrified. This was the real him. Sifting through the mountain of cruel messages, she suddenly remembered the Instagram post I had liked just before I died. She decided that had been the final straw. Clutching the phone, she stormed off to confront him. Faced with the evidence, Caleb panicked for a second before defaulting to his usual wide-eyed victim routine. Bree, I only did all that because I love you so much. But Sabrina had seen the monster behind the mask. She couldn't be fooled anymore. Don't you dare say you love me, she spat, her face contorted with disgust. You are only ever looking out for yourself, lying and manipulating everyone around you. You're not worthy of that word. Compared to Sean's love, a love that asked for nothing in return, you are nothing but garbage. Caleb's face twisted in a sneer. He dropped the act. And you think you're so great, Sabrina? If the system hadn't assigned me to you, I wouldn't have looked twice at some desperate old woman who can't act her age. I have no idea what Sean ever saw in a brainless hag like you. But hey, good thing he's dead. Spared him a lifetime of misery with you. Sabrina was so enraged, she started to tremble. I, on the other hand, found it hilarious. Because the truth was, I had never loved her. My indifference was the only reason I'd survived my relationship with her at all. Suddenly, a thought struck Sabrina. She lunged forward and grabbed Caleb by the collar. It was you. You kept pushing him, kept tormenting him until he couldn't take it anymore. You killed him. You're a murderer. Caleb shoved her away, laughing coldly. Oh, Sabrina, the person who killed Sean was you. How can you pin that on me? You're lying. I would never. Wouldn't you? Caleb cut her off, his voice like shards of ice. Have you forgotten what you put him through for 5 years? You never cared about his feelings. You didn't even treat him like a human being. He gave you everything. And what did you do? For me, a guy you'd known for 3 months, you punished him again and again. You humiliated him. You hid him. You canceled his wedding and made him the laughingstock of the entire city. Tell me, if you were Sean, would you have found the courage to keep living? Every word was a nail hammered into Sabrina's heart, leaving it riddled with holes. She had no rebuttal. The color drained from her face, leaving it a ghostly white. Seeing his words hit their mark, Caleb softened his tone, holding out a hand to her. You see, Sabrina, we're the same, you and I. We only care about ourselves. We'll do whatever it takes to get what we want. So forget Sean. Be with me. I can make you happier than you've ever been. His words seemed to have a hypnotic effect. Sabrina slowly reached out and placed her hand in his. Just as Caleb thought he had won, that his mission was finally complete, Sabrina looked up. If I marry you, she asked, her voice eerily calm, you'll stay here forever with me? Caleb blinked, then nodded. Of course. A strange, chilling smile spread across Sabrina's face. A sense of wrongness prickled at Caleb, and he instinctively tried to pull back. But it was too late. In a flash, Sabrina produced a small, sharp knife from her pocket and plunged it deep into Caleb's ankle. He screamed, collapsing to the floor as blood pooled around him. Sabrina stood over him, her face a blank mask. She took a ring from her pocket, one of the diamond ones from the photo, and slowly, deliberately slid it onto Caleb's finger. A desperate, broken smile touched her lips. You want to stay with me forever? I'm granting your wish. Her voice was dead. Don't worry. I won't let you die, but I won't let you live either. With that, she grabbed his bleeding leg and began to drag him toward the basement. When I was alive, Sabrina had never truly seen me. But in her subconscious, she had never imagined a world where I would be gone forever. It was like breathing. You never think about the importance of oxygen until it's suddenly gone. And when the oxygen she had taken for granted vanished, the crushing weight of suffocation set in. Sabrina was already broken. I didn't need to see the rest. I knew that what awaited Caleb was an eternity of torment. It seemed that opening that door unlocked something dark within her. She began to take her revenge on everyone who had ever wronged me. Her best friend Lauren, her whole posse of hangers-on. She systematically dismantled their families' companies, their entire lives. But her scorched earth tactics came at cost. Her own company soon crumbled under the strain. Unconcerned, Sabrina simply dissolved it. She locked herself away in her house, spending her days in the basement, devising new ways to make Caleb suffer. I never imagined my death would cause such a catastrophic chain reaction, but none of it had anything to do with me anymore. Because as the final pieces of her old life fell away, the system finally, belatedly, returned. A new gateway was opening. And on the other side, my wife and daughter were waiting for me.